I happened to be working on a trucking dock in LA. I was loading oil well freight from 5 at night till 1:30 in the morning. When my dad became governor, that's what I was doing. I got the night off to go congratulate him on becoming governor of California. In fact, I asked him for a job that night. He told me he didn't believe in nepotism. And I went home thinking I voted for the wrong guy. This is crazy. What do you mean a politician doesn't believe in nepotism? Are you nuts?
Welcome to Power Boat Talk, the podcast where we talk everything performance boats with your host, Joe Road.
Welcome to Power Boat Talk. Today I'm very honored to have with me Mike Reagan. Probably obviously recognize the name. Mike is the son of one of our former presidents, Ronald Reagan, and most of us boaters love us some Ronald Reagan. And so what a lot of people probably don't know is Mike is an avid boater, has a history of some really cool boat racing achievements from the 60s, and then he started back up in the 80s. And I thought it'd be really cool to get Mike on and talk to him and talk about the exploits and how this all happened. So thanks for joining me, Mike. I really appreciate it.
I worry about those exploits.
We'll just talk about the ones we can talk about. So Mike, you're currently Mike's done a lot. He's been a talk show host. He's currently a motivational speaker. He's a writer. He's a chairman and president of the Reagan Legacy Foundation, a nonprofit organization, which is I think pretty much is what occupies most of his time these days. So I don't know if you want to kind of tell us about that a little bit. Just let people know what you're up to these days.
Yeah, well, I was in radio, did talk radio for, from 1983 to 2009. Got out in 2009, and because I had so much work to do within the foundation, we provide scholarships to the men and women who serve aboard the USS Ronald Reagan. We've been doing that since she was christened back in the early 2000s. We've had projects that we do at St. Mary Glees, Normandy, France, which is the first town freed by America, 4 a.m. of D-Day morning. If you ever saw The Longest Day, it was actually filmed at St. Mary Glees, which was the center point of what was going on December 6th. So we do a lot of work in that area. We have a brick project we started there a couple of years ago. Right now it's on hold because they're getting it all ready for the 80th anniversary of D-Day coming up this June 6th, and then we'll get it all fired back up. But I do television quite a bit. I write 3 op-ed pieces of the week. I'm on Newsmax and other various sundry other shows, interviews on politics and what have you. However, this is the first interview I've done in forever having to do with boats. And so I was so glad to get the email, and I went, oh, I'm in.
Oh, cool.
And that was right away I answered you back, didn't I?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so cool. And I told you that the reason you were on top of mind with me is that I do a little bit of freelance writing. This is all just kind of side gigs for me, but I do some freelance writing for Speedboat Magazine. I just did a little short history piece on the Parker Enduro. And when I was doing some research, your name came up several times. I'm like, oh, that would be somebody really cool to get on the podcast. And I happened to find your email on your website, and yeah, you were gracious. You responded in a couple of days. So that was very cool. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I read your article. I mean, the Parker 9 Hour was terrific. I loved the Parker. I think most people love the Parker 9 Hour just for the semi-Le Mans start.
Yes, yes.
Because it was so much fun and what have you. But that was a great race. I mean, 9 hour race. And so we enjoyed that. That wasn't the first race I got into boat racing. I think the first race was the Salton City 500.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Those of you listening who are that old.
Yeah. We're talking 64s, 5, 6, 7 in that area. Yeah. So
yeah.
Okay. So getting into that, obviously. So your dad's an actor. He, I guess, kind of got his political start because he was the president of the Screen Actors Guild for many years, and that kind of led him to a roundabout way. He became the governor of California in 1967. So right in the prime of his political career, here's his son. How did his son you're in California. How did you get into boats and boat racing? How did that, I mean, did you grow up riding motorcycles or something, or how'd that happen? It's just amazing.
No, I grew up crazy. No, I rode horses with my dad on weekends, Saturdays.
Okay.
I rode horses, shot ground squirrels, went swimming with my dad, and what have you. But I've always enjoyed going to races and so on and so forth. And I was actually Dick Jacken, who was the son of the foreman of my dad's ranch in Malibu. Had a friend of his, Jack LaPrake, who had a service station in Van Nuys, where he worked on engines and boats and what have you. And there was a race boat in there that he was working on the engines, getting ready for the Salton Sea 500. And he asked Dick and I, because we go down there every night because we were just mesmerized by it all.
Uh-huh.
I happened to be working on a trucking dock in LA. I was loading oil well freight from 5 at night till 1:30 in the morning. When my dad became governor, that's what I was doing. I got the night off to go congratulate him on becoming governor of California. In fact, I asked him for a job that night. He told me he didn't believe in nepotism.
Uh-huh.
And I went home thinking I voted for the wrong guy. This is crazy. What do you mean a politician doesn't believe in nepotism? Are you nuts? And so Dick and I would be down there at night with Jack and the boat owner. And he asked us if we would crew for him at the Salton City 500. And at that time, Salton Sea, they were trying to make it like what Havasu was going to become.
Mm-hmm.
They had, made lots available, and they had all kinds of stuff. And there was a salesman down there, real estate guy, was taking people out, looking where your house could be in relationship to the Salton Sea and whatever. So it was a big promotion, Salton Sea. And you had what's in there used to be on TV in LA, from the desert to the sea, all of Southern California was like the grand marshal of it. And so we went down there and we crewed for him in the race, which was really kind of cool.
Wow.
And kind of got our feet wet. And, and it wasn't, I don't think it was that year, but it was next year we said, geez, why don't we get a boat and try this? And Bob Patterson at Van Nuys had a boat owned by Freddie Miller. It was the first glass boat that, in fact, Bob Patterson ever made. Everything else was wood up until that point. And we bought it from Freddie Miller. And I was able to get sponsorship from Ralph Williams Ford, got me a single overhead cam Ford to put in it, which is neat. Gave me a station wagon to pull it. Jack LaPrake worked on it. And we also had Holman and Moody work on it. They wanted to work on it next. So Holman took it down to Holman and Moody, which was just getting started at that time, back in early 1960s, mid-60s. And spent a lot of time down with Holman and Moody and single overhead cam Ford. And we raced in the Salton Sea. And we didn't win the Salton Sea, but we raced in it. I had our own crew for fueling and what have you. And I think that year, the first year we were in it, or the second year we were in it, we had Mickey Thompson raced in it.
Uh-huh.
And, he was out there racing. He was sponsored by Gulf Oil. He had a big Gulf Oil sign over the top of his boat. And he flipped in turn 3. So the Gulf Oil sign became the turning buoy in turn 3. Gosh, we had who else came up from Indianapolis 500? AJ Foyt raced it one year, and AJ came up to me afterwards. He says, "You guys are crazy." I said, "What do you mean we're crazy?" He says, "You guys have no brakes." I said, "Well, yeah, you have no brakes. How do you step on the brake to go into a corner?" I said, "Well, we don't."
Yeah.
And I said, "But you guys run 200 miles an hour into walls."
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, "So don't tell me I'm crazy. You're driving 200 miles an hour." So we ended the conversation by saying, you're a little bit crazy, I'm a little bit crazy, but the people who are absolutely out of their mind crazy are the motorcycle racers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we agreed that they were certifiably nuts, and what have you. So yeah, Rudy in there, Rudy Ramus in there from,
mm-hmm.
Was great. Ed Olson, they had a big 18, 20-foot boat with a Allison engine in it. It never would break. So he was in it. I think he won it a couple of years. A lot of great guys. And then of course you went to the Parker 9-hour. You got the same guys up there. You didn't have Mickey Thompson or Indianapolis 500 winners up there, but you had the rest of us started that whole process with the Parker 9-hour.
Mm-hmm. But still going back, so you had no experience driving a flat bottom, driving a race boat, and you're in your boat.
No.
Oh my gosh.
No, I never. Well, I mean, I skied, and I've been in boats that you ski. I've driven boats you ski behind, and what have you. I've done that, but I've never done that. But you know what's really interesting is, and I find this still even to this day, and it would happen a few years later when I won the Uphold World Championship at Lake Havasu. They get me into the race because I had a great last name and they bring publicity to the race. Never thinking, my God, he can also drive. So, and then they end up, I remember Keith Black coming up to me after a race we had in Tennessee. And he came up to me and says, I got to congratulate you. I said, what? Why? Because we came within an inch. His Chrysler blew, because I was using his engines at that time, 2 laps from the end. So instead of winning the race, we came in whenever. And he said, I didn't realize you could drive so well. I go, thank you, Keith. Thank you for that. They look at the name and don't think you do anything else. And so I got into it, really, really enjoyed it. And with all the crew and the Parker 9-hour, Lake Havasu City, which I won in 1967 with Billy Cooper, Rudy Ramus, and myself. Everybody listening knows Billy Cooper, Rudy Ramus, and their God. And I was asked to get in that race simply to bring promotion to Lake Havasu City. My boat went for $13 in the Calcutta the night before. That's how much people didn't believe in my boat. We had 3 1250 BP Mercs on it. We weren't even part of the Mercury team.
Wow.
They said, well, because of Billy Cooper, they gave us the engines because he was so respected, and Rudy. And I was a new guy on the block. They liked the name, but they liked the fact I had Rudy and Bill around me. And so we weren't even part of the team. And Lake Havasu was a 2-day race, 4 hours Saturday, 4 hours Sunday. And guess what? On the end of Saturday, we ended up being in the lead. We're the only Mercury in the top 10. And so that night, Mercury decided to make us part of the team. What can we do to help? Let's go through those engines, make sure they're all working just right. And then on Sunday, I drove the last 2 hours on Sunday. Billy did the first 2. I did the last 2. And we ended up winning the Uphold World Championship in 1967, which was really kind of cool because nobody expected it. The media was down there, they didn't even believe it, so they weren't even covering my boat. And then when they realized when I was getting into it for the last 2 hours that, my God, I might win the race, all the media showed up at my boat. Can you get out of the boat one more time, get back in the boat? I said, I'm trying to win a race, and we ended up winning it, which was really kind of cool. That's my big, that was at that time, 1960, 67, was becoming Uphold World Champion. 1967, I think I was named Inboard Rookie of the Year by the Southern California Marine Association.
Oh, cool. When you started off at Salton Sea and you were racing the Patterson, you kind of were doing that whole circuit, right? Like you said, the 9-hour. And
we had a circuit. We had the 9-hour. There was a race up in Northern California. Race out lake up there. Clear Lake?
Was it? Well, there is Clear Lake. Did they race marathons? And I also know there was an Isabella. Lake Isabella had a marathon too.
No, it's up by San Francisco.
Yeah.
So it's up that. Okay. I think that's Clear Lake.
Yeah.
So we raced. We had that race. We had a race in Texas. That Red Adair was putting on. He was part of it. Red was a great guy. Red Adair, firefighter extraordinaire. Him and his whole crew. It was just. I don't know how we get out of the bar at 4:00 in the morning. We're at the race at 8:00 in the morning racing boats. at 100 miles an hour, but we're saying who's going to get out of the bar last.
Yeah, right, right.
Oh yeah, we had gosh, that whole group with Red was great, and what have you. But another interesting thing, if you ever go see the movie Clam Bake,
Oh yeah, uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
with Elvis,
Yes.
this if when they put the sound of his engine in the boat
Uh-huh.
in the movie,
Uh-huh.
that's my single overhead cam Ford.
Oh, no kidding. Oh.
Yeah, they took me out. The producers took me out running my boat, and my engine, and they put that into the boat. And he was the boat he was running was a Mandela number 99.
Yeah, yeah.
It was called Rawhide,
Right.
and that boat was actually built for me. It was offered to me by Mandela and the whole crew, and I stayed with Racing Craft and Rudy instead of moving over to Mandela and what have you. And so it's interesting to see that boat in the movie, number 99 Rawhide.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
unfortunately, Mandela, he would be killed in front of me. Gosh, in 1970.
Oh, you were there when it happened, yeah.
He was in front of me.
Oh, yeah, Lou Brummett.
Lou Brummett, when Lou flipped that boat, he was right in front of me in that boat. I think that was my last race in a racing craft in the inboards. He flipped right in front of me. I'll never forget it because he was a dear friend. Him and his lovely wife, just dear friends of mine, and what have you. And but that's the unfortunate thing of being in that business when you're driving 80, 90, 100 miles an hour and you flip, and that's also where the Lifeline jackets came from, and and Stearns jackets all came from that era, because the K-Pod jackets, the problems they have with those, if you flipped, it puts your face down, and so many of us would drown. And that happened at Long Beach at Marine Stadium down Long Beach. So they have races, short course races on any given Sunday, and so that's when Lifeline moved to Parker, started producing the Lifeline jacket. Stearns did a jacket, and a few others did the same jacket.
Yeah, wow. How'd you get from the Patterson to the racing craft to get to know Rudy?
Oh, just out there racing, to be honest with you. And Rudy went down to, Rudy is dad down there, down south here. And Rudy offered me to come race with Racing Craft, and so I'll build you a boat. And I went, oh, that sounds good. And so he did that, and built me the boat. And so I had the first one was called Things Go Better. I had sponsored I had Coca-Cola LA, one of my sponsors on it at the time, and so it worked out well. Rudy and I had a great relationship for a long time, and all the guys that raced at that time. So it's and that when they asked me to race in the Uphold Championship, I went to Rudy. I said, Rudy, what, we have anything here at the shop? He said, I don't build outboards. I said, but there's got to be something here at the shop somewhere.
Yeah.
And we started lifting up covers with dust. And he says, oh, wait a minute. I think I got one. He lifted up a cover. He said, I think this boat might have won it last year. I'm not sure. I forget. And it was dusty. It was dirty. Yeah. We blew the dust and the dirt off of it and put it together, for the race. What was interesting in that race was my last 2 hours, the dashboard fell out. Oh. So I'm actually holding the dash up with my knees, and I'm going, and I go by and they got the arrow go faster. I'm thinking, Rudy, I got my arms going, Rudy, I'm trying to keep this thing right side up. Are you crazy? The deck was absolutely split. The top deck absolutely split. I'm holding the dash up with my knees when we pull in and to get the trophy at the end of it. And Rudy comes over real quick and sits on the deck, right on the cracked deck so nobody can see it. Oh. And I was sitting there having my picture taken with my knee underneath the dash, holding the dash up like, oh, this is great. Things are wonderful.
Well, that's one of the most intriguing things to me personally, is because, I follow, like, obviously the latest editions of the 9 hour. It's a 4 hour race now. And they still have like I can't really remember, but they're still finishing maybe 20% of the guys that start. And that's with, 60-year-old technology, 60-year newer technology that's really good, and it's hard to keep them together. And like you guys were doing it in, flat bottoms or very shallow V's for 9 hours in just way less sophistication. So that it was just how you guys did it then, and how you walked the next day, and how you kept boats together. It's pretty crazy to me. That's something that's really intriguing.
I mean, I'm suffering now.
Yeah,
I've got, but I would never have ended it and what have you. But you're right. Who really changed it was Howard Boats when he came out with the semi V.
Oh, okay. He was like kind of the first guy in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and they started winning everything because exactly what you're saying and talking about. Made a great boat, great hull, and was winning because it was a much smoother drive than the flat bottoms that we had. I won't go to Havasu or Parker anymore because you have people out there who think they can drive these boats 90 miles an hour and stay upright and and drink. You're going,
Yeah.
not me. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But the Parker 9 hour was really, really something, as you write in your article about the Ford dealer in Parker, who was the big backer of it and really got it started. And unfortunately his number one guy working for him got killed in that race. 1968, 69, which was tragic.
Was it Bob Ellis by any chance?
Bob Ellis.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know. I just
Bob
don't,
Ellis. They always gave him spot number one because the Ford dealer.
Okay.
So he always got spot number one, and he came out, made a right-hand turn, stayed too close to shore, and went underneath the dock. Really, yeah, Bob was great guys.
Yeah.
It's just great people. It was fun. You had Mike Wallace, you had Lou Brummett, you had, all these just great guys out there, and it was fun. Rudy and Olson, just go through it. Norskog. We always joked Norskog was winning races until we got the APBA to change the rule that we could have 500 cubic inch engines. Because we knew that he had one, but none of us had the money to tear him down. And when we finally got the rule changed to 500 cubic inches, he never won another race, and he went to offshore.
Oh. Yeah, crazy. So going back, the question is, I mean, what is your dad saying? What is he thinking? That's just like in this day and age, it would be heard of for somebody, a son of somebody with that kind of political clout to be doing this kind of stuff.
Well, my dad thought I was nuts. So did my mother. I had a brand new 20-foot racing craft built for me for the Clear Lake in Texas in 1969, I think, or 69. And ended up, Mike Wallace was next to me in that race too. And I launched and came down, chined, and the side blew in. Boat was too green. We took it out. We were too much in a hurry to get it ready. It was too green. Side blew in, sucked in, shot straight up in the air. I went out of the boat. And next thing you know, in front of the LA Times sports section the next morning was my boat hanging by the boat that was bringing it in. And I was in my bedroom. I think it tore every muscle in my body. And my dad called me on the phone. He said, have you ever thought of selling boats instead of racing boats? He says, I believe that was your boat on the front page of the LA Times this morning, the LA Times sports section. I said, yeah, that'd be mine. He said, maybe you should think about selling.
Maybe.
And ultimately I did in the 1970s. I was selling boats and ultimately selling, I was top unit salesman for Sea Ray boats during the mid-70s.
Okay. Yes, I saw you were a sales guy and you were doing some boat stuff, but I didn't really see where you had worked for, who you'd worked for. So
yeah. Harrison Sea Ray Boat Center.
So then I think I saw it was like 1971. You had kind of your last race and you walked away from it, and then pretty much stayed out of it until the early 80s when you got back into it in kind of a crazy way. And I don't know how many people know about this, but you started an endeavor where you were doing some endurance runs to raise money for I guess you really started with the Olympics, the 84 Olympic Foundation, because you, I guess, were were you chairman of the Olympic Committee or the fundraising committee? And that's
No, not really.
no.
When my dad became president of the United States, everybody thought, I was going to be the next, Billy Carter with Billy Beer,
So so people who don't remember Billy Carter, why don't you do me a little quick one on that?
Well, Billy Carter was Jimmy Carter's son, and he was a little, getting himself in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So he has his own little beer company. He started, Billy Beer and all this stuff.
I forgot about Billy Beer.
And so yeah, right, yeah. So everybody was looking for I guess, for the Reagans to have their own Billy Carter, and I guess they elected me to be that guy. And so it's very tough because I was selling boats at Harris and Sea Boats up here in San Rafael Valley on Sepulveda, and but you have secrets. But when your dad becomes president, you have Secret Service protection. So now I'm going to work with 6 guys with guns. I thought that might be a good way to sell boats. You could buy my Sea Ray, you go down the street and buy a Bayliner, but this one comes with protection.
Yeah.
Again, so I'm selling Sea Ray boats, and guys come in, and it wasn't working, and so I said, I gotta get out of this, and then nobody give me a job because I had Secret Service around me all the time, and the press was trying to find stuff, and I couldn't really find a job, and I had to create something. So I created a company, MCR International, Michael and Colleen Reagan,
okay,
as a fundraising tool. But then I had to figure out how am I going to do that? I had no idea how I'm going to do that. And Larry Smith was a dear friend of mine forever. I remember, back in the early '60s, I met Larry when he was racing boats and what have you, and building boats and so on and so forth. And we've been friends. And Larry came up to me and said, "You know something? Why don't you consider us putting together a scarab and going after some world records? And let's do the Mississippi River. There's a record there between New Orleans and St. Louis, and I'll supply the scarab. We'll go to Evinrude, see if they'll put up the engines and what have you. But you're in charge of figuring out the TV and the money and all this other stuff." So that was kind of my part of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
I ended up going to Bob Iger in New York and said, "I'm going to do this race up in Mississippi. Would American Sportsman cover it?" And it's interesting that day because I wore a tan suit, white shirt, red tie, and tan loafers, brown loafers.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked into Bob Iger's office in New York, and he was wearing a tan suit, white shirt, red tie, and brown shoes. And I looked and I said, I guess I got the message. And he ended up saying, "If you get the deal done, we'll cover it." And Sam Posey actually covered my race on the Mississippi for American Sportsman, which is cool. Went to also, because of being in offshore racing, I didn't know, Budweiser at that time, but I knew of Budweiser at the time. And of course, Larry did. And so went to Budweiser and got them to say, "Okay, that sounds good. You got television? That's good." And so Budweiser came in and said, we'll sponsor you on the Mississippi. I got, the big company with all the hotels.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah, Marriott, right?
Marriott. Bill Marriott came in. He was part of it. Really, we made him a suit for the race, but he had to take the Bud Light patch off.
Oh.
And we laughed because Marriott Hotels is like the #1 seller of Budweiser beer in the world, right? But God forbid you see Bill Marriott Jr. wearing a racing suit with a Bud Light patch on.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody to know that.
Yeah.
So okay, but we're good. And we set up a couple of 3 boats to actually do the race.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah. You started with 3 boats. So you had backup equipment.
Yeah, with backup and so on and so forth. And I went to Peter Grace Corporation. I said, I got this race I'm doing for the United States Olympic team. I got sponsors for the boat. And I would keep the money I would get for people who were putting name tags on the boat. So that's my money. And then, but anything else would go to the charity. So it was for the United States Olympic team, single largest fundraiser in their history at that time. I still think it is by an individual. $500,000 were raised that one day.
Wow.
But it was it was really kind of interesting. You get through the whole thing because we get Budweiser involved. We have Evinrude gets involved with three of their V8 outboards, 430 horsepower apiece. So we had 3 big outboards on the back of this boat, and went through lower units, if you will. We hired a navigator who would navigate the Mississippi River on a regular boat.
Oh yeah,
we hired him to navigate my boat, and went up the river, and we ended up breaking the record. I had my dad at the end. We did a dinner to honor Augie Bush as Olympian of the Year, and my dad was there, put a thing around his neck, and it really worked out. Really worked out very well. We said, "Gee, maybe we should." You know how sons always want. I want my dad someday to say, "I'm so proud of my son, what he's done, what he's accomplished, what a great kid he is." You wait. Every son, I think, waits for that, as I do. You know, when your dad's president of the United States and all that stuff. And so I'm sitting there at the dinner, and I forget who was sitting next to me at the time. Whoever was sitting next to me elbows me, says, "That was really nice." I woke up. I said, "What was nice?" "What your dad just said about you." I said, "What did he say?"
You missed it.
I was 24 hours in a race boat.
Yeah.
You're up hours before then, hours after getting ready for the dinner. I didn't hear a word he said. Didn't hear a word he said. That was kind of cool.
Now, how did you get him to do that? That's amazing.
My dad?
Yeah.
Well, my dad was the titular head of the Olympic Committee.
Okay.
As president of the United States.
Oh, okay, so he was okay. I read it wrong then. He was the head of the Olympic Committee. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Olympic Committee, but we didn't want to make it about him. We made it about the race, about the Olympics.
Sure.
And it really worked out. Really worked out phenomenal. I couldn't ask any better. We broke the existing record. We had the Grace Challenge Cup that still exists today, I think, on the Mississippi River. My record's been broken since then, but that's okay. But people have got to understand the pressure. You've got television, Sam Posey, American Sportsman covering you, start to finish. How many people are looking for a Reagan to fail?
Yeah, right.
Oh, this is just a rich kid. My parents made me work for a living. Hey, like I said, I was on a trucking dock loading oil well freight 5 at night to 1:30 in the morning when my dad became governor. So we're always raised doing it on your own. But, because you've got a last name of a famous person, they're always looking for your failures, not the other side of the coin. So, anybody else who did the race could have failed. Right? I didn't have the luxury of being able to fail, and we didn't at all. So we did that, and then we did one on the Great Lakes, Chicago to Detroit, and that worked out well. And
do you remember what charity that was for?
What? That's the Olympic Committee.
Oh, that was Olympic Committee.
Still Olympic Committee. And then we did juvenile diabetes on another Great Lake run. And then we did the cystic fibrosis. We did a run on that. That was from Ketchikan, Alaska to Seattle. We did that one. I think that record still holds today. I believe it does.
Yeah. Okay.
And we did that one, and that was covered by I think ABC. Right, ABC News covered. We put an ABC News guy in the cockpit with a camera, so it worked out. Really, kind of worked out great, and he was able to get an interview with my dad. When Dad accepted the nomination in '84, I remember him being on TV and going up to my dad and saying, I was, with your son in that record. He said, Ketchikan, Alaska to Seattle in that race boat. Said, when did you know he was when did you know Mike was going to be okay? And he said to the reporter, he says, you know, we had a ranch in Malibu, bunch of white fences, and I would pay Mike and the foreman's son to paint the white fences during the summer. I would give him like 10 cents a foot for 3 rails, and then 15 cents a post. And he said, you know, I was driving out to the ranch one day and driving up to the main house and saw a couple kids painting the fence. He said, went up to him and said, hi, I'm Ronald Reagan. They said, oh, yes, we know Mr. Reagan. And he said, I asked him, I said, what's your name? They told him his name. He said, where's Mike? Well, he's at the beach. He's at the beach. What's he doing at the beach? Well, he's paying us to paint the fence on his behalf. Well, what's he paying you? Well, he's paying us like 2 cents a foot, and we're paying and 7.5 cents a post. And he said, that's when I knew Mike was going to be okay. He was an entrepreneur. He had subcontracted the painting job so he could be at the beach. That's when I knew he was going to be okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you know, and like you said, I mean, if you're going to use your name, I mean, to use it for something that's for good, like you did, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and it's great. We raised probably close to $2 million for different charitable causes. I think somebody has it around $1.5 million. I think it's closer to $2 million. Cystic fibrosis was a big event, $250,000 we raised for them in that race. And the U.S. Olympic Committee, juvenile diabetes, being able to do that. Statue of Liberty Foundation, we did a race for them for the restoration, and it's the only one we broke down in. We were about, gosh, I can't tell you how many miles we were off of Georgia, and we're out there. Now remember, when I had Secret Service, so when I'm doing these races, I have a helicopter over the top of me with Secret Service in it.
Oh.
And I have going up the Mississippi River. There is a boat. There's a bus going alongside on the road with Secret Service people in it. So I'm always being protected wherever I go. And but we break down the middle of the ocean off of Georgia, and we get a fishing boat finally comes over. Say, hey, we're in trouble. Can you take us into Georgia? How long it take to get there? He said, geez, about 15 hours. 15 hours, yeah. I only go 7-8 knots. Oh, well, how much will you charge us? He looked at the boat. And he says, cost you $25,000. Oh, I said, $25,000? Are you out of your mind? He said, okay, I'll take off and go fishing. Get 2 or 3 more offers and call me. I looked at him. I said, yeah. It's like there's so many boats out here coming by. I said, just take us. So we sat there, took us into Georgia. But we still raised $50,000 for the restoration project on the Statue of Liberty Foundation.
Oh, cool.
That was good.
Cool.
Still raised money. So that was always the plan. I guess I still do that. With my dad's library out in Simi Valley, I have different foundations offer off a tour of the library for 8 people with me doing the tour. So I've been a lot of money raised for different foundations, and I'll meet them out at the library, and I'll take them on a tour of the library, and like they refer to me at the library as the prequel, because all the stories they tell, I have the backstory of the story that they tell. So they call me the prequel. So I love doing that, and we raised quite a bit of money for different foundations from them auctioning off tours of the library with me doing the tours. Love it.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wanted to say too, because it's that Mississippi run. I mean, that's 1,000 miles. So I wanted
1,027.
I wanted people to know that was no easy task. So
I said to Peter Grace. So I say to Peter Grace, will you sponsor me? Will you sponsor the mileage? And after I tell him the story, he goes, "Oh my God, we're in. We'll do it. I'll do the mileage." I said, "Great." We shook hands on it. As I'm walking out the door, he says to me, he says, "How many miles is it from New Orleans
he did
to
ask
St.
you.
Louis?" I said, "It's 1,027." he looked at me and said, "Did I just commit to over $100,000 to my company?" I said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
He said, "I want you to go downstairs to our PR department. I'm going to call, make an appointment for you. You go down right now. I want you to sit this guy down. I want you to tell him the same story you told me, but don't tell him the mileage till he asks." I said, "Okay." So I went downstairs and I told him the story. He said, "Peter agreed to you doing it, sponsoring the mileage?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "I love it. We're in." I said, "Great." He said, "How many miles is it?" I said, "It's 1,027 miles."
Yeah.
He said, "What?" "Oh, and he said, "Now I know why he sent you downstairs."
Yeah. But they paid it, right? They paid it, and that's now that they call it the Grace Challenge Cup now, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They paid the money. But it was a good prize. Geez, you got the Sam Posey covering for American Sportsman. It was, we got a lot of good promotion for it. And that, which was my first 38-foot Scarab from Wellcraft, who built it for Larry. That boat sits in the St. Louis Museum of Transportation.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Missouri,
Yeah.
either Missouri or St. Louis Museum of Transportation is where that boat sits.
Yeah. Now, when you guys were doing, if I read it correctly too, when you guys were going to do that race, the number one boat was a diesel powered boat with Arnesons. That was going to be your number one. The V8s was kind of like the backup, right? And you kind of
they want to make it the Arneson, but it wasn't working that well for us.
Couldn't get it to work.
And so we chose to do whichever boat I'm in was number one, and we moved it over and did and used the outboard with Evinrude and Charlie Strang and that group, just great people. Morris from Florida, who was basically my throttle man on that, was great. Really, but people understand when we did the race, we only stopped for fuel. We didn't make it a 2-day event. We made it a 1-day event. So we were running at night on the Mississippi River, and the guys from Budweiser, whatever, is saying to us, "You're averaging over 70 miles an hour at night."
Yeah.
I said, "Don't tell me that."
Yeah. And didn't you? Wasn't it for? I can't remember if there was a lot of rainstorms the week before. Whatever. You guys had a lot of you had a lot of dodging wood.
Oh yeah, a lot of dodging. Yeah, a lot of dodging, a lot of stuff. Same thing on the Ketchikan, Alaska to Seattle. All the deadheads, all the logs. We broke down halfway through that race. We broke down Alert Bay, and we had to use our last lower unit on that race. And so I came home. The last half of the race, I only had 2 engines. I couldn't afford to lose and get up on plane and run with only one. And we made it the rest of the way with just, with 2 engines. Yeah. So, and I had a $50,000 bet with what's those game cards? There's a card game. I forget what it is now. And we had a $50,000 bet that I could break the existing record.
Oh my!
If I didn't, I owed him 50. If I did,
no.
He put 50 in the tank and I did it by 8 minutes.
Oh my gosh! And even I think, and I didn't look, but I think the Evinrude V8s, they were pretty new motors too at the time, right? So
they were brand new.
Yeah, so that's
brand new.
That's pretty good that they did as well as they did too, being new stuff,
Yeah, and one of the problems they had with them is the harmonics was breaking the lower units.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was one of the problems we had. Evinrude found that out before they put those into complete production for everybody to buy. Now, of course, they don't have the problem. But when we were racing, the harmonics in the lower units were just busting the casings.
Yeah, because those V8s, that was a pretty amazing deal when they came with those V8s. Kind of set the world on fire.
Oh, 435 horsepower each. I remember I take the Secret Service when I was taking it out down in Florida, and I running the boat down there, practice and stuff like that. I used to put a Secret Service agent, in my passenger seat. Said just sit there, and he'd be there, and I said, "Look to the right," and I just hit the throttle.
Uh-huh.
I said, "Now try to put your head back." He just, gee.
Did you have any of those Secret Service guys that liked it, that wanted to be in it?
They thought it was great.
Did they? Okay.
Oh, yeah, oh yeah. They had great respect. The fact what you're doing, out there, and again, and the charitable causes that we were able to help, and do that. It was good. So even though I basically just created my own job by putting together this whole race program.
There you go.
During the 1980s, and then it was during that time I was asked to sit in for Michael Jackson in Los Angeles, and guest host his radio show.
Oh, on the radio show, yeah.
And that was 1983, and I was so I guest hosted. Next thing I know, I'm doing a weekend show, and next thing you know, I'm doing it. In 2009, I finally walk away from it. I was one of those shows, that was replaced by Rush Limbaugh.
Rush Limbaugh. There you go.
So I had to start my own show because I got canceled by Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, he had quite the run.
Oh, he did. Well, I was the first long form show put together by Premier Radio Networks, which basically is iHeart and everything else now. But I was the first long form show. Yeah, I had to find something else to do, and now I'm still raising money and doing stuff, but I'm not racing boats anymore. Yeah,
I was going to ask you about one more race. Back in '86, there was an offshore race to Miami, Nassau to Miami, and it was like 360 miles. And I guess they kind of resurrected it, and you were one of the, I think it was only 5 or 6 people that did it again in '86. And it talked about you took the Scarab, the same one with the Evinrudes, and I guess it was at some point it finally broke the transom out of the boat. You had put so many miles on the boat. They
got a great picture of me sitting on an island.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, great picture of me sitting on an island, and what have you. But it was fun. But we were racing with the chicken guy.
Popeyes. Yeah, Al Copa.
Popeyes fried chicken. Popeyes chicken. Yeah. So all those guys. I mean, all those guys, the offshore racers from that day. Gosh, it's unbelievable. We used to joke about the offshore racers. Larry Smith and I did. We used to joke and say, "You win the national championship on Sunday, and you're arrested for drug trade on Monday."
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, because that. Yeah. And
Doc Magoo.
Right.
Doc Magoo.
Yeah.
I had to go to court. What's the name who designed cigarette and all that stuff when he was killed?
Don Arono.
Yeah, Don Arono was a friend. He gets shot to death in his coat leaving work, and all of a sudden I'm down there. They got me down in Florida to testify in the case against the kid, the son of another boat builder who had taken a copy of the cigarette boat, and they wanted me to race for them with their boats. Now I wasn't going to leave Scarab, but Larry and I sat down with him anyway. Larry was my mentor, so I said, "Larry, we're going to go to dinner together." I guess they had that the dinner mic'd. So I according to them, where do you think they were going to get the money to sponsor? I said, "Why? That's not what I do."
Yeah.
They offered me a boat. Where do you think they were going to get the boat? Well, they build boats. So I'm down there. I said, the kid is the kid that took out the hit on Arenal.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm thinking, you've got me in a friggin' court of law in Florida where the kid took out the hit on Arenal, testifying. I don't know shit.
Yeah.
What are you doing down here? Yeah. This is crazy. What's going on? Oh yeah, but God, those are such great days. I mean, Don Arenal, God, the whole group. Our friends from Popeye Fried Chicken. Well, a bunch of I look at the guys now, but I look at the guys that started this stuff. Really started it, and you go we didn't, we were racing 100 miles an hour, 110 miles an hour. We didn't have air pockets in our boat if we flipped. We didn't have all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, now you've got, my God, of course you could drive 100, 80 miles an hour. When you flip, you're in a cocoon.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
they're also running laps, a half mile from shore too, whereas you guys are going point to point like that Nassau race. I mean, it
Nassau,
was
yeah,
yeah,
Nassau, right?
Nassau.
Yeah,
Those were big seas. That was 400 miles of big sea.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
weird. And these guys are doing okay. And so I really have great effect for those guys, whether it's the Parker 9-hour guys, who the inboards gave way to the outboards
Hmm.
with the pickle forks and what have you. I remember that
Yeah.
first couple of years of the pickle
Yeah,
forks
tunnel boats.
at
Yeah.
Parker. It looked like Dunkirk
Yeah.
because they were being blown over, so they're all in the air
Yeah.
type thing. But again, all those guys, I mean, started the whole process with the whether it be down at Long Beach Marine Stadium, Parker 9-hour, Lake Havasu City, the races we did, in Arizona,
Hmm.
races we did in Texas, all over the South Carolina, we did one. These guys had formed it and did it, and we were doing it for fun. Nobody was doing it to get rich.
Right.
Nobody was doing it to get rich.
Right.
Everybody's having really good. Richard and Raymond from Red Adair's crew,
Hmm.
and he had he had the guys who would fly into the sky and astronauts driving for him. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, there was
Amazing.
I
It's
think
fun.
Gus Grissom, and who was it? Was it Cooper? I think there was a
Oh yeah,
couple of
oh God.
yeah,
Oh yeah, Coop.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh, it's yeah. We're all a bunch of guys, having a kick-ass time
yeah.
and having fun, and doing the racing, and it was fun. It was great. It's I had a great time. I'm glad I did it. I've got arthritis in my thumbs from holding on to things, feet from standing in boats and taking 10 G courses to go across the ocean. But I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
It's a great time of my life.
Yeah.
And what's nice about it was my time. The rest of it became Dad's time because he becomes president.
Hmm.
So it's all about him. And my mother was famous too, Jane Wyman,
Hmm. Right. Right.
Academy Award-winning actress. Those listening have watched Falcon Crest during the 80s.
Hmm.
So I had my mom '1 show in the 80s on TV and my dad at the White House. So it really became about them. But that whole thing in the 1960s and in the 80s, even when Dad was president, really about the things I was able to accomplish. Because one of the hardest things to do when you've got famous parents is find your own lane.
Hmm.
What's your lane?
Hmm.
And that was my lane.
Yeah.
I love boats, love being around boats, and selling the Sea Ray boats and racing the boats. And I think they honored me a couple of years ago at Long Beach Marine Stadium
Oh,
for
cool.
the time I spent in there.
Hmm.
I think we still hold the record between San Francisco and L.A. We did that race too.
Hmm.
L.A., San Francisco, L.A. What's her name? A couple of years ago. What's the big oil company that races boats?
Oh, Lucas. Yeah.
Man, Lucas Oil went after my record.
Okay.
And I didn't know he still had that record.
Mhm.
Got a call from Larry Smith. He said, the APBA wants to know if you'll come down to Long Beach on Sunday. I said, why am I going to Long Beach on Sunday? Well, Lucas Oil is going after your record between San Francisco and LA. Really? I said, I still have that record? He said, yeah. And they'd love to have you here for a photo of you presenting the trophy to Lucas Oil for breaking your record. I went, okay. So I went down to Long Beach and we waited, and we waited, and we waited. And they never showed up. They broke down, which isn't hard to do around conception.
Hmm.
When conception's tough. And so I guess I still hold that record between San Francisco and LA, and I think I still hold the record between Ketchikan, Alaska and Seattle. I think I still do. Maybe I don't. But I hope if somebody goes after it, they do it to raise money for a charity.
Hmm. Well, like you said, you made your own way. I mean, obviously, you wisely used your name for sponsorships, but
Mm-hmm.
but what you did, just if you just look at the Mississippi thing, I mean, the logistics, I mean that was just you executed. You had a lot of stuff in front of you, advantages there, but you had to execute that, and there's so many logistics and so many pieces to make that come together. And then at the end of the day, you're the one in that boat going, 75 miles an hour into pitch black, after, and it took you guys like 25 hours. So, I mean, you had to be dog tired. And so nobody,
dog tired.
no last name lets you do that,
That's true.
So
It's
that's
really,
very cool.
we had a light on the dash in front of me. So I had Mike, our navigator, on my right, Johnny Mann on my left, throttle. And I'm sitting there because you're looking out and you just see black, right? And so we had a light mounted, and so our navigator, Mike, had his left hand on the dash in front of me, and the light was on his hand. And he would simply move his hand to the left, straight, or to the right. And I would follow his hand at 75 miles an hour at night. I'm following this guy's hand on the Mississippi River. I can't see anything out the front. I'm looking down at his left hand, and I'm turning the way that left hand tells me to turn as we go up the Mississippi River.
I just found my notes on, so your navigator was a guy named Mike Lowe, and he was a grain barge pilot for 15 years running up and down that river. How'd you talk him into doing that?
I don't know, but he fell apart about 3/4 of the way through.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he finally also I looked over and he was in the bilge. He was in the bilge. You're right, rough barge pilot. He was literally in the bilge.
Yeah.
And Johnny Mann looked, what happened to Mike? I said, he's gone. I said, I guess we got to find our own way in. He was gone.
Yeah.
He just finally just maxed out.
Yeah. Well, that's just a whole different deal.
He did a great job.
Yeah.
I'm glad he maxed out during daytime.
Yeah.
Because if he'd done that at night, we'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. So, well, fantastic. It was good because I did some reading up and I started looking at it and I'm like, you don't really realize, because I do remember at the time, I mean, you guys got a lot, it was everywhere about the run. You guys got a lot of publicity, but when I really started diving into it and looking at what it took and the 3 boats and that was a big logistics challenge that you got through and did a really good job with it. So that was very cool.
Well, thank you very much. It was great. It really was great. Larry and I talk all the time anyway. Larry is Scarab, and we've known each other forever. And it was good events that we put on, and raised a lot of good money for good charities, and had a lot of fun. And in fact, my father, I think it was in New Orleans, the kickoff. Was it there? I think it was New Orleans with my dad. At the end of the race, I'm sorry, did a meet and shake with my dad. My dad actually found out that Colleen was pregnant with what would be our daughter, in one of those lines where you shake hands with my dad. Really funny. They're talking to each other out of the sides of their mouth. I'm pregnant. So
interesting. And the other thing that just stands out to me, I think what was really intriguing to me was, again, I might have said already, was the fact that, here's the governor of California, president's son, and you were able to do, especially when you were doing the flat bottom racing at the time. I mean, it wasn't F1. I mean, it was like stock car. I mean, it's just grassroots, just kind of normal guy stuff. So that was very cool. And I guess it's just more of a testament to what a good guy your dad was, and how, it was about responsibility and letting you make your own way. And that's very cool to hear about that.
But like any dad, he thought I was crazy.
Yeah. But he let you do it.
He didn't get a job. I have a job.
Yeah.
I'm loading oil off right, Dad. I'm okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, again, thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And I guess you're on X. It is now. It's at Reagan World, or
at
Twitter.
Reagan World. Don't forget the A in Reagan. And I do stuff with Newsmax television. I'm on usually Mondays. I do an interview with them about what's going on political. I write about 3 columns a week. So there you go. And I end up putting all the columns on my X account.
Okay. And then the Reagan Legacy Foundation has a website. You can check that out too. So if you want to find Mike, you can.
Yeah, Reagan Legacy Foundation.org.
Perfect. So.
Yeah, if anybody wants to donate to the scholarship program, they just write check out to Reagan Legacy Foundation. Put in the columns, put scholarships, and then what we do is we provide $1,000 scholarships to the men and women who serve on the Reagan, but we provide $2,000 scholarships to family members who are at home while their loved ones are serving on the ship. Those are trying to better their education also.
Oh, awesome.
I guess you could say over the years, my boats have gotten bigger, from an 18-footer to a 20-footer to a 38-footer to an aircraft carrier. Yeah. So we're going over.
There you go. Well, that's usually in the boating world that's relevant because of two things: you get smarter and you get a little more money, right?
Yeah, I heard. Yeah. Good deal. Hey, thank you so much for checking in.
Hey, Mike, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Powerboat Talk. If you like what you've heard, please head over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. For more Powerboat Talk, follow us on Facebook or Instagram, or visit our website at powerboattalk.com.